The hour of 7 o'clock having arrived, I'm going to call the council to order. Let the roll reflect that all council members are in attendance with the exception of Councilmember Liefeld. A quorum has been established. We have several items before we begin our regular meeting. We have a couple of introductions and some proclamations. And so we're going to begin with first the staff engineer, our new staff engineer being introduced by our esteemed Public Works Director, Nick. Welcome to the meeting.
Thanks, Mayor Hicks. Good evening, council members. This is something I haven't had to do too often, not in recent times, but I'm happy to be here to introduce our new staff engineer, Bryce LeBrun, who hails from Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, and just recently finished his civil engineering degree at Michigan Tech University. So he's going to be our first Husky on staff. We've got a couple Golden Gophers and a token Badger, but Bryce will mix it up a little bit more, and we're excited to have him. We're going to get him out in the field right away here as we start our neighborhood reconstruction project here in the next couple of weeks, and he's already been learning a lot of things over the last week since joining us last Tuesday. So again, happy to have him, and just wanted to make sure that you can all put the name with the face now.
Welcome aboard, Bryce. We're really glad to have you. You're working with an outstanding team here in the city of Hastings. Did you want to say a few words at all?
Yeah, I think Nick said it pretty well, but I'm happy to be here. Love the town so far, and if you happen to see me out on any of the projects, say hello. You'll see me around a lot.
Okay.
So, thanks.
Very good. Thank you very much. Thank you, Nick. Next, I'm going to call on Chief Schaefer to introduce our new Deputy Police Chief, David Wilski. Chief, welcome to the meeting.
Good evening, council members and Mayor. Tonight, I have the honor of introducing to you, as you said, the new Deputy Police Chief for the City of Hastings. This appointment is the first of a number of organizational leadership changes in the Hastings Police Department. We've been talking about it now for about a year and a half. The Deputy Chief position will provide oversight and supervision of investigations, evidence, school resource officer, drug task force, training and quality control, crime analysis, and community engagement. This position plays a key role in promoting clear and concise lines of communication both inside and outside our agency, and at the same time holds staff accountable for providing professional police services to our community. Tonight's appointment gives me a great sense of pride knowing that Deputy Chief Wilski represents the future of Hastings Police Department and is committed to taking us to the next level in professional policing. Wilski is a 20-year police veteran, previously serving as a lieutenant with the University of Minnesota Police Department. Dave worked a number of progressively responsible positions within that agency, including patrol officer, investigator, patrol sergeant, investigative, administrative, and operations lieutenant. He has a broad range of experience, including leading the opening of the TCF Stadium. Wilski resides in Lionel Lakes, has a 15-year-old son, Jack, who you'll meet here shortly, and he's an avid cyclist and loves fishing, so it fits right in with Hastings and with our community. So with that, I would ask the mayor to step forward and administer the oath. David, if you'd step forward. Please stand. Right there is good.
Dave, why don't you come over here and we'll get you on television.
Okay.
Okay, we'll be able to hear you. Okay? You look at, raise your right hand.
I, David Wilski,
Do solemnly affirm
do solemnly affirm
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
that I will support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
the Constitution of the State of Minnesota,
and the ordinances of the City of Hastings,
and the ordinances of the City of Hastings,
and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of a Deputy Police Chief of the City of Hastings.
it's getting long, Mayor,
Faithfully discharge the duties.
that I will faithfully discharge the duties
Deputy Police Chief of the City of Hastings,
for the Deputy Police Chief of the City of Hastings,
Counties of Dakota and Washington,
Counties of Dakota and Washington,
and State of Minnesota,
and State of Minnesota,
according to the best of my judgment
according to the best of my judgment
and ability.
and ability.
On my honor,
On my honor,
I will never betray my badge,
I will never betray my badge,
my integrity,
my integrity,
my character,
my character,
or the public trust.
or the public trust.
I will always have the courage to hold myself
I will always have the courage to hold myself
and others accountable
and others accountable
for our actions.
for our actions.
I will always uphold the Constitution,
I will always uphold the Constitution,
my community,
my community,
and the agency I serve.
and the agency I serve.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it.
One of the most well-known symbols of policing is the badge. This badge is a symbol of trust, and the authority it conveys comes from and belongs to the people of Hastings. At this time, with this issuance, we pray that you will serve a long, safe, and successful career. Tonight, the badge will be pinned on Deputy Chief Wilski by his son, Jack.
Too much starch.
It's bulletproof.
And I just ask for a few brief words from our Police Department chaplain, Jim Bazowski.
Well, welcome aboard, David.
you, sir.
Good to have you with us.
Thank you.
We pray for all of our officers that they doing their duties every day, they're safe. So if you just join me just for a moment. Father, we've just prayed for David. Just pray in his new position, Lord God, that you keep him safe, his family safe, that you give him wisdom, that you will guide him each and every day. And we thank you, Lord, to keep your hand upon him. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen.
And I want to present you a Bible and then something if you want to move on with your inner life.
Thank you.
Okay? Good.
Appreciate it.
Good. God bless. Thank you.
Picture?
Yes.
It's on you. Go ahead.
Council, we're gonna have a picture with our new deputy police chief. Come on down here, chief. And Jack, we want you part of this picture. Come on up with us.
Congratulations, be safe.
I think we're ready. See, we all like photo ops, don't we? So we wanna.
Steal the wrong one.
I think, David, one of the things that's a strength of our department is if you look in the back here, the numerous personnel from the police department are here to witness this and your oath, all the oath that they've also taken. And our community takes pride in its police force, and I think you're going to find that very quickly. And we're very pleased to have you on board, and we wish you the best of luck, and our Hastings community wishes you well. Thank you. Next, while we have our presentation, we have a proclamation. And the proclamation is in honor of June 21st, 2017 is Make Music Day in the city of Hastings. And I'm going to ask my colleagues in the city council to read the proclamation. Before I do that, I'm going to ask Kelly Casey to come up here to accept the proclamation, and then she's going to tell us a little bit about that program. Okay? So, Councilmember Vaughn, I will have you start us out.
Whereas the City of Hastings has declared Wednesday, June 21st as Make Music Day, and
Whereas this is the first year that the City of Hastings has celebrated Make Music Day. Make Music Day is a free celebration of music around the world on June 21st, beginning in 1982 in France, and is now held the same day each year in more than 750 cities and 120 countries. And
Whereas the purpose of Make Music Day is to encourage and invite Hastings residents and visitors to celebrate by enjoying free performances, cultivating civic pride, and a sense of community. And
Whereas Make Music Day 2017 will be held 7 o'clock a.m. to 9 o'clock p.m. at various Hastings parks. And
Whereas Hastings Area Quick Trip will be donating free refreshments at Levy Park 8 a.m. to 9:45 a.m. while supplies last. And
Go ahead.
whereas local and metro area bands and soloists will be donating their performance, and the City of Hastings is appreciative of these civic-minded performers to help make this event possible. And
Now therefore be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Hastings hereby declares June 21st, 2017 as Make Music Day in Hastings, Minnesota. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Well, thank you very much on behalf of everyone who has put their time in and the ones that will put their time in beginning unbelievably at 7 a.m. on the longest day of the year. They're going to be right out here in the city square, and they are going to be providing just an idea of what people do here in this town, which is make music. And so we're going to have a national day to recognize that. Once again, it's an international day, and we have music at venues all throughout the city. Grover's Corner, there's going to be, Oliver's Grove, all down at the pavilion and in local parks. So check the Parks and Recreation Department schedule for that. And we thank you very much for recognizing this great thing here in Hastings.
Thank you very much. Okay, next, we'd like to recognize the Pleasant Hill Library is here for an update. Mary Scheide's here from the library. Welcome, nice to see you again.
Thank you very much.
Welcome to the meeting.
Mayor Hicks, council members, and city staff. It's nice to see you again. I appreciate time on your agenda to give you a brief library update. I first want to highlight a project that we launched in April. It's a pilot project with a charitable contribution from Allina Health. We partnered with Regina Hospital to add fitness kits to the Pleasant Hill Library collection. This is a non-traditional item. As you know, it steps beyond books and our other materials. We have 12 different kits, and we have 2 copies of each of them. I brought along just an example so you can visualize what these are, and they're hanging on a display in the library. So this particular kit is a Pilates toning ring. So you could check this out for 3 weeks. It's first come, first served basis, and you get the toning ring, and you get a DVD that goes with it, and you get other instructions. This is only at Pleasant Hill. As I said, it is a pilot project. So they check out free for 3 weeks. You can't renew them. And we have 12, and we have 2 copies of each. So they've been circulating quite well, and they range from, several of them have to do with Pilates. We have a Tai Chi beginner's kit. We have several kits that have resistance bands and stretch out straps in them. We have a hand therapy ball kit. We worked with Courage Kinney in town here to get some suggestions from them, and we patterned it after another library system elsewhere in the country. So we will be doing the pilot for 1 year, and we'll see how they're received and gauge public interest. Secondly, and most importantly, I'm here to talk to you about our summer reading program. You have in front of you a bright green sheet that I tucked inside the program guide. This lists all of the youth and family programs at Pleasant Hill Library in the months of June, July, and August. And as you know, all the library programs are free. Some of them do require registration, and those are indicated with an asterisk on the sheet. I also gave you a copy of our full program guide, which is the multicolor, multi-page book. This features information on events that are happening all around the Dakota County Library System. So it includes our branch and the 8 other branches in the system. Our summer reading experience at the library blasts off on Wednesday, June 7th. We have an outer space theme this year. It's designed to prepare preschoolers for reading and to help school-age children and teens increase their confidence in their reading ability. And it's a great time because the kids and the teens have a chance to make their own choices about what they want to read outside of their school day. This year, there's 3 registration options for youth, depending on their reading ability or their level and their age. So we have pre-readers, independent readers, and teens. So it's a little bit different this year. We have game boards as we have in the past, but for the younger pre-readers, they're asked to complete an activity in 5 different early literacy areas, and those include talking, singing, reading, writing, and playing. That's for the pre-readers. And then the independent readers have another activity log where they can take ideas from the space rocket on the left here and fill in the bubbles on the log. They can come up with their own ideas around reading. When they complete 10, they bring it in and they get a free book. When they complete 20, they bring it in and they get a free notebook. For our teens entering grades 6 to 12, we have a teen tack-toe board. There's one each week. They have various activities. Traditional tic-tac-toe, they complete 3 in a row, bring it in for a scratch-off card as we've done in the past, and a chance to win books and gift cards and other small prizes. New this summer is an exploration station at Pleasant Hill Library. This will be in the children's area, and kids and parents are invited to discover something new each week. So it's a self-directed station. There will be experiments and some STEM activities that they can do, and some other make and take crafts that they can take with them when they leave the library. The Friends of the Library annually sponsor our kickoff party, and this year it's on Tuesday, June 13th. There will be crafts and games and root beer floats. We have it in the morning, and then we repeat it again in the evening. We will be out in the community, so look for us at Rivertown Days. We'll be at the free summer meal program sites. We will be down at your beautiful Rotary Pavilion doing story times in the park, and the farmers market as well. So summer is a great time to come into the library, sign your family up for summer reading, get your library cards if you don't have them, and we look forward to seeing everyone.
Thank you. I look forward to that root beer float. That sounds pretty
Yes.
good. I'm motivated. Thank you very much, Mary. Appreciate it. Next, we have Chris Jenkins, our Park and Rec Director, who's going to give a presentation. Our esteemed Park and Rec. There we go. Does that make you feel better?
That's
There we
what I was
go.
waiting for.
Welcome to the meeting, Chris. Glad to have you here.
Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm going to ask Jack and Jacob to come on up here and stand with me and be uncomfortable. Mr. Mayor and Council, I'm here tonight to recognize these 2 young men in our community who have recently completed a project that has provided something that was missing at roadside tennis courts, as well as the middle school and the high school tennis courts. Jack Samachek and Jacob Youngstrom are both scouts with Troop 23 here in Hastings. In working to earn their Eagle Scout Award, they took on a project offered by the Hastings Tennis Association to build 33 benches for our local tennis courts. This is no small project. However, they took on the challenge and completed the project recently. Jack and Jacob recruited some help from Troop 23 and some willing adults to assist with the project. In the end, 24 people volunteered over 30 hours of work to bring this project full circle from idea to reality. Coordinating this effort demonstrates great leadership and organizational skills that are essential for all of us as we proceed in our life's endeavors. The City of Hastings and the local tennis community will enjoy these player benches for many years to come. The city would like to extend a big thank you to the both of you and all the volunteers that contributed to this project. And we'd like to present these certificates of appreciation to both Jack and Jacob, and I'll read what's on the certificate. In recognition of your civic engagement and your commitment to helping your community with works to be enjoyed and experienced by all, the City of Hastings thanks you for your work and contribution of 9 player benches for the roadside tennis courts, awarded to both Jack and Jacob. Thank you very much, gentlemen.
If we can have a photo.
Sure. Council, should we go down for a photo? Let's do that. Thank you. That was a great. That was part of an honors project, by the way. So, as far as Eagle Scout, so that's very significant. That's a great achievement. Thank you. Next, we have a report of the Minnesota Coalition Against Sexual Assault. We have the audit summary. Chief Schaefer, welcome to the meeting again, sir.
Thank you, sir, Mayor and Council. Tonight, I'm just going to make this very brief, just to kind of bring you up to speed on a project that the Hastings Police Department collaborated with the Sexual Violence Justice Institute and MinCASA, which is the Minnesota Coalition Against Sexual Assault. This was a project that started under former Police Chief Paul Schnell, and it was his belief at that time that we weren't doing as much as we could possibly do when it comes to taking care of victims of sexual violence. So he collaborated with these organizations along with the County Attorney's Office, 360 Communities, a lot of these collaborations that we have and we take great pride in. As a matter of fact, we now have an advocate in the police department really specializing in domestic abuse, but also transfers over to sexual assault. So I think as part of this audit, and not directly related to this audit, but the fact that we've been building partnerships, we've been gaining more resources within the police department to do a better job all the way around in these cases. So I'm just going to run you through really quick. This was posted, this draft was done in January 2014, and it's about, I don't know, it's probably 35 pages or so, and outlines all of the measures. So I'm just going to walk you through briefly. As I said, why such a project? We want to, this is a traumatic event for our victims. We want to improve the victim experience with the criminal justice system. In previous experience, we know that when we encounter victims of sexual violence, you first may encounter a brief interview with the initial responding officer, and then maybe with an investigator, and then with medical staff, and then maybe having to tell your story over and over again to the attorney or the prosecutor, and then advocates. So this was something that we really wanted to trim down so that we could improve the experience, if you will. We wanted to increase the victim confidence in law enforcement and the criminal justice system. Increase the number of cases that lead to successful prosecution. I'll show you briefly. We weren't doing a real good job of getting successful prosecution, but it wasn't solely, these are complex cases, and these are cases that it doesn't land solely on law enforcement. I know our city attorney can agree that there are lots of details that go into this, and sometimes we don't get victim cooperation like we would like to, or there are other nuances to the case that make them unprosecutable, if you will. We wanted to model excellence through willingness to analyze sexual assault response protocols, and add to the body of research and learning by serving as a demonstration site. This project really told us to some degree what we already knew, but it was doing the research, and we know that small agencies throughout this country, which most police agencies are very small throughout the United States, and encountering or investigating a sexual assault is somewhat infrequent. So not like going to some of a large metro department where they have a unit of people that this is all they do and they specialize in it. So the infrequency is what made this experience maybe a little bit complex, because we lacked consistency. Background of the project, as I mentioned, one of the biggest reasons against a low success rate in prosecuting the case is successful prosecution. There was, over the last 3 or 4 years, there's been a lot of attention given to sexual assault. If you recall, when the BCA was, they were asking for and calling for how many kits were being examined, and there was cases all around the United States that were bringing sexual assault to the forefront. So this also gave us a good reason to analyze it from a small agency perspective. And then, of course, the case review process by the Sexual Violence Justice Institute. So by looking at all of this and looking at case review, our goal was to take a proactive approach in Hastings in dealing with this issue. The project support This was a multi-year grant. So far, we're just getting ready to close it out. There'll be a summary of the grant, or a summary of the audit, plus there will be a review of what has happened since this data was published in 2014. We're going to go back now and we're going to look at current data and see if the changes that we made have impacted the results, or if we've improved our results. Again, this was a two-phase project. We had an information gathering and analysis, and then an improving response by giving officers best practice tools. And again, as I mentioned, some of our project partners were the County Attorney's Office, 360, Minnesota Chiefs of Police, and Minnesota County Attorney's Office, among others. This were the cases that were analyzed in this audit. We looked at sexual assault cases for 2008 through 2012. As you can see, 2008, I believe we had 7. 2009, it was 14, and 10, 11, and 12 were all pretty stable at 21 or 22. The last 4 years, or last 3 years since this report came out, or last 4 years, the numbers still remain the same. They run about 21 or 22 a year. The project components here, there was a law enforcement survey. There was a case mapping where they took a look at all of these cases individually and looked at what some of the problems were, if you will, and then a series of interviews. So they took all that data and reported on those findings and recommendations for improvement. The phase 1 component of this, the engagement piece with Hastings Police Department, we had 23 out of our 26 officers at the time completed surveys. The survey team did 6 ride-alongs totaling 34 hours, did 6 in-depth interviews, and 6 members of the police department were put on an internal advisory group. There were several findings in this 35-page document. I wanted to focus on what I think was key, and this was that 70% of the officers felt that they had very little training. And this is interesting because I asked this question among new recruits coming out of some of our vocational schools and colleges, and I was surprised to find that they have little or no training in sexual assault investigation. I was shocked by that. So what we have done, as you see, that 70% felt that they had very little training, and over 80% said yes, training would improve our response. So every officer that has come on this department since 2014 and 2015, our new officers are sent to a MNCASA-sponsored sexual assault training. It's baseline training, so we get everybody in the department at a baseline level, and then our investigators and other select personnel will receive higher level training in this investigation. The other component, again, after we did these interviews and gathered all the information, we looked at best practice policy review, process mapping. How should an officer who does this infrequently, how should they respond, and how do we get them to respond with consistency so that we respect those the victims, building victim confidence in the system and building rapport with our victim. And then also this included a technology review. What can we use, what can we do with current technology to better our investigation? And we had a group that got together, and it was really interesting because there were ideas like using our iPhones or phones to walk the officers through the process with the victim. Sometimes those of you that have been to a doctor's office where you fill out they hand you an iPad and you fill out all the information and it's interactive. Those were discussions that we had about if we sit down with the victim, go through this interactive software to explain to them what's going to happen, what they can expect, and it also keeps the officer on track as well. So those were things that were talked about. And you can imagine developing that kind of technology. That was what we were hoping would be the next phase of this if we could get funding, and that didn't happen. But I believe that this is being looked at in other realms to try and implement. So in the end, after the results came out in 2016, we now we made training, as I mentioned, we mandate our new officers, all of our new officers, and try and get all of our officers to sexual assault training. We changed our policy to reflect the practices, the best practices that came out of this review, and we made a few technology changes that were within our control. So this is what we did: developed a new sexual assault policy. We identified resources for training to promote policy and best practices. That is the partnerships that I'm talking about. Now that we have an advocate, we can bring that advocate in to assist us with these cases. We're going to implement some changes and additions to our police reporting software, which I'll show you in just a moment. And as I talked about already, we identified some potential openings for opportunity to develop interactive data collection tools that we can use both as we conduct the investigation and to collect data, so we don't have to ask it more than one time. And we know that technology is there, but it's expensive and it's ever changing. One of our the key parts of our new policy was first that the first responding officer is solely responsible for assisting the victim. A lot of times we may only have 2 or 3 officers working, and so you may have a crime scene that you have to deal with. You have somebody has to deal with the victim and start the ball rolling. Start the ball rolling. So the policy really focuses on, if you're the first one responding, you make sure the scene is safe, and then you stay with that victim. That victim stays with you through the entire process until we bring advocacy and get others involved. It does, again, require us to work with advocacy. The study showed about 8 out of 45 cases that we had active involvement of advocacy, and when I looked at that data, I realized why then Chief Schnell said, we've got an issue here because we're not even getting advocates involved at the very beginning. That has changed. I like to think right now we're about 100%. It promotes immediate investigative response, a case management plan, and allows for alternative reporting methods depending on jurisdiction and agencies that are involved. So these are just the key items that were brought out in the policy. Some of the training that this has, I guess, forced us to do, but it's the right thing to do. Trauma-enforced interview and investigation techniques. There are techniques out there now that specialize in dealing with victims with trauma around this topic, and there's that's the kind of training that MnCASA is sponsoring, and the kind of training that we are trying to get to our officers. The report writing software, this was the little bit of the technology that we were able to capitalize on at the end of this project. The e-forms through our CGen network that we use, they developed an e-form, basically a police report, so that when you list the offense as being a sexual assault, it opens up a bunch of fields and it makes a bunch of mandatory fields, so we can collect what type of force, where it occurred, just right down to every detail. And every agency in Dakota County has that same form, so we can now collect, as a county, if somebody said, well, if out of all the sexual assaults in Dakota County, how many of them were forced with a knife? I'll just say that as an example. We can go into the software and we can nail that down, right down to the demographics and details in these cases. So it does enhance our statistical data, and it allows us to do a better job at education and better job at response. It promotes, the software promotes language, different types of language. What we find as police officers, sometimes a victim may minimize the assault and say, for example, well, it was the suspect subjected me to non-consensual sex, for example. The new software will now put a little bubble on the form, and it'll say recommend using this terminology, because sometimes we do a disservice by not using direct quotes and doing exactly what the victim says, because we may be embarrassed to write it, we don't want to put it in a police report, a number of different reasons. So that is something that we're using this technique for sexual assaults, but it's also opened the door for us to use that same type of bubble or recommendations on how to phrase a report in other types of cases as we move forward. So this doesn't apply specifically to us, and it will help others in the future. It also addresses evidence collection and packaging and tracking, and also searches out whether we do search warrants and other orders. So it really kind of gives us a real nice package with this format in the report writing software to, again, ensure consistency. We have, I believe there's 20 some odd blanks or windows that need to be filled, and every department has the option of turning any number of those on or off. We've got them all turned on, so you can't complete that report unless those fields are filled out. So there's no shortcutting the police report process and entering the data. And this is kind of what the form looks like. This is what the officers see every day. There's a number of forms that look like this. There's the bubble I'm talking about. We type the word mutual, and up on the top it says, I can't really, well, let's see, let me put my glasses on, maybe I can see it here. At the top, it says, you put in, I don't remember how many words we put into the system for it to key on, but there were hundreds. But when this word is typed in, it says, please describe the physical and emotional state of the victim. So it kind of cues up the officer to say, hey, get this in your police report. This is important to describe. It says also consider using words spoken by the victim, suspect, or witness using quotation marks, and attribute the language if this is a direct quote. So just by putting one word in the narrative, it gives the officer suggestions on how they can best write the report and, again, ensure, I think, better and stronger prosecution, a stronger case. So those are the things that we accomplished. We're very proud of it. As we move forward, I think there's always been talk of formalization of a SART team, which is a sexual assault response team that happens in larger agencies where different officers are specially trained in sexual assault, and when one is reported, they all, as a team, respond and all have a responsibility. So again, there's that consistency. It's very difficult to do when you have a county this size with different shifts, number of officers. So for the time being, we are still working on best practices. We will continue to investigate our own following the recommendations of this audit and the new policy, and hopefully to continually expand on technology. So with that, I'd welcome any questions that you might have.
Okay, thank you, Chief, for that presentation. Councilmember Balsanic.
Thank you, Your Honor. Chief, is there anything in the educational process for police officer training in school that addresses anything like this?
Ironically, there is. Since our new advocate came on board, our school resource officer has been working with her. They've also been working collaboratively with CEASE, the group that has formed to address sex trafficking. So, yes, we have. I think we've established a good relationship, a strong relationship with the school. It's probably not where it needs to be, but that door has been opened, and I have to give most of that credit to both our school resource officer and our advocate.
The reason I ask is amongst the million things I did to make money in my career, I taught for a number of years at Inver Hills Community College, which has an excellent reputation for law enforcement degrees. Is it something that is lacking in the associate degree requirements for a degree? Is this something that could be plugged into so that there is coursework that the students could take that lead them up to that? I'm getting back to that 70%, haven't had any training, and 83% said, yeah, we should have it. How is this too much to wrap our arms around to get to higher education and say, look, you've got to make this a requirement for graduation.
And I think the mayor can agree with the last legislative session, a number of new mandates have come down for law enforcement training, and from what I've seen, that they're trying to pack everything they can into what they do now or what they're doing already, among other things. So I think it is really localized as something that we as a police agency have to focus on. And then we also can choose the quality of training. There's base level, this latest trauma investigation technique is fairly extensive, but it's very good. So if we're going to do it, I would hope we want to do it right. I've got 2 investigators now that are trained in that top-notch, top-level sexual assault investigation or interviewing technique, but we want to get more people. We get everybody to the base level and then gradually bring them up to a higher level. So
And I totally agree. I mean, this is commendable in terms of what you presented to us tonight. And especially since it was started by a former police chief, and you just seem to have picked it up and you're running with it. It's just another reason why I think we should be very proud of our police force here in the city of Hastings. And I just want to thank you personally for being such an advocate in this. It's something that is coming out of the woodwork more and more in our society, and probably still not enough. And it's a case of embarrassment, being unassured whether or not something actually did happen that was illegal, and what have you. And the more we can do as public officials to make a victim comfortable with going through the process, I think the better off we're all going to be as a result of it. So thank you very much.
I appreciate that. Any other questions?
Any other questions, council? Thank you, Chief, for that presentation. And we continue to make this a high priority within our department, and I'm glad that we're able to update that tonight with the audit, and look forward to any future reports in this regard. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, council. Approval of the minutes. We have before us tonight the minutes of the regular meeting of May 15, 2017. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes of that meeting? Seeing none, they stand approved. Council items to be considered. Any additional council items to be considered? Councilmember Folch.
Your Honor, I would like to add an item to the, Thank you. I would like to add an item to the agenda. Would this
Okay.
be the appropriate time?
Yes?
I would like to add a brief discussion about the Dakota County Historical Society agreement for managing the Leduc Mansion.
Okay, we'll put that under C, Administration 1.
Thank you.
Okay? Any others, council? Okay, consent agenda, council, what's your wish? Councilmember Lund makes a motion to approve, second by Councilmember Brox. That motion is now before the body. Councilmember Folch.
Your Honor, could I please pull 2 items that are on the consent agenda
Okay?
for just brief questioning? Number 9 and number 10.
Number 9, okay, and number 10.
Yep.
Okay, and we'll put that under Administration 2 and 3.
Thank you.
Okay? Consent agenda with those 9 and 10 withdrawn. That is now the motion before the body. Is there any additional discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Next, we have under awarding of contracts, public hearing, to reject the bids and refer project to committee, Riverfront Renaissance 3.1. Nick, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Mayor Hicks. Again, good evening, council members. Had some good news to share at the beginning of the meeting, but this particular item is less fortunate in nature, and we don't do this very often because we typically get pretty good results when we bid out projects. But in the instance of the Riverfront Renaissance Phase 3.1, we opened just one bid about 3.5, 4 weeks ago now, and that bid was way too high, about 65% higher than the estimate expected it to be. And mind you, that estimate was already pumped up and inflated to account for the complexity of the project at hand, and that is the alley between the bridge area and Sibley Street, north of 2nd. In talking with the contractor about their rationale for why they had such high prices on all of the items in the contract, among those differences being up to 300% in some cases beyond the estimated amount, they cited several reasons that pushed them to consider this project as having a pretty significant risk, and so they priced accordingly. And among those things were the fact that we have multiple different private utility entities that are in that alley. It's pretty congested space underground already, and as you could recall, part of the scope was to make that even more congested underground with burial of the overhead utilities. So coordinating with each of those entities to make that happen, all within the time frame of the project, was something they felt was very difficult. The project does have a pretty small footprint. It's just a 14 to 16 foot wide corridor, and not a lot of room for staging of equipment or materials, working alongside older buildings and some of the risks that go along with that. There is a lot of bedrock in the area, and that always is a challenge when you have to remove that and make way for utilities underground. It could take quite a bit of time to do that with power equipment. And then the challenge of working amongst 11 separately owned private buildings and businesses in there, and making sure that access can still be maintained to a reasonable level, and that business can carry on. So all told together, that made for a big difference in the price that they assigned in their bid. The lack of competition probably played into that a lot too. They may very well have seen that there were not a great deal of plan holders, and felt like putting a higher price on it, thinking possibly they could get that bid anyway. So, but to sum it up, the price received is just too far beyond what the city's budget can allow, and so with that, staff is recommending rejecting the bid. And we know that City Council is very big on the goal of completing the Riverfront Renaissance vision, and with that in mind, to push it to the Planning Committee for further discussion, maybe some reformulation of the project scope or details of it, and then bring it back at a later time. It does mean, with the amount of work involved, that we could not turn around on this project and construct it within 2017's construction season. We're just too tight on what's allowable for that. So it would be in 2018 or beyond. So I'll turn it back to you, Mayor Hicks.
Okay, thank you, Nick. Appreciate that report. Council, this item is before us. What's your wish? Councilmember Balsanic?
Thank you, Your Honor. Just to say, I mean, it's terribly disappointing that we can't move forward with it. I was, I think, the initial advocate to get that alley improved and reconstituted, and to incorporate artwork and pedestrian-friendly types of amenities that are there. So that's the downside of it all. On the upside, I'm on the planning committee of the council, so we'll have a good chance to see what kinds of alternatives we can come up with. And just in my head, I'm coming up with some already. So on that basis, Your Honor, I'll make a motion to approve the recommendation from staff.
Okay, Councilmember Balsanic makes a motion to approve the staff recommendation and send this to the Planning Committee, seconded by Councilmember Brox. That motion is now before the body. Discussion to that motion. Councilmember Fulch.
Your Honor, I understand fully, and I agree to reject the bid. I was just wondering if there was anything that could be done yet this summer in regards to the trash receptacles that are right behind the new Lock and Dam, eatery right underneath the bridge. The trash the garbage, the large garbage bins are just kind of hanging out there on the side of the utility and along the parking area. And now that that patio is open, it was directly in between the view of the new patio and the river. As I was there on Sunday enjoying an adult beverage, which was really very nice and refreshing to be there on the river and enjoy music that was going on. And so with that said, I would just ask if you could see if there's anything that can be done. I know that there's the trash receptacles were supposed to have permanent housing, put around them eventually. But if there's anything that could be done in the interim, and if this project doesn't actually, happen until sometime next summer, that could just help the aesthetics back there a little bit. I don't know what can be done. I don't have any answers. I'm looking to you.
I think the proper comment right now is I would like to see what the committee's consensus were on that. That's a pretty small scale work,
Yep.
but there is interrelationships with those facilities and things that happen underground too. So you do have to take the entire context together before making a final decision on
Sure.
something
Okay.
like that.
Great.
So.
Okay, further discussion, council? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have, under Community Development, a resolution, a special use permit for CrossFit, 2950 Lightbourne. John, welcome to the meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. Tonight, we have before you a request from CrossFit HSC for a special use permit at 2950 Lightbourne Court. This is a property that's presently owned by the City of Hastings as part of the Hastings Industrial Park. It's a little bit of an unusual request in the standpoint that we're looking today only at the use permit itself, not at any of the plans for construction of the building. The plans for construction of the building as a site plan permit would come back forward to you and through the Planning Commission at a later date, and that would happen upon an agreement to sell the property from Hedra. But the applicants wanted to ensure that the use was acceptable at this property prior to moving forward with the acquisition and the design, the final design of the building as well. So we are handling in that fashion tonight, only looking at the special use permit aspect of it. And just a reminder of that, any special use permit action that we do take as the city council does require 6 of 7 council members. So I think we have 6 present tonight for that action. What they're looking to do is to have a fitness facility which is termed a retail and service business within the industrial park. Within the industrial park zone, we have uses that are described as permitted and uses that are described as special uses. Permitted uses can go about without council approval. Special uses require Planning Commission review, city council approval. So that's why this is before you tonight. Ultimately, within the packet, we did provide a couple of concept drawings of what the building would look like. This is an example here of where the property is. Lightbourne Court is off 31st Street. This is Enterprise Avenue. At this location, they operate existing out of this building right here, off of one of the leased tenant spaces. What they're looking to do is to purchase land and to build their own building, which would be located just to the east of it on this property off of Lightbourne Court. This is conceptually what the site plan would be. Driveway coming off of Lightbourne Court with some parking and a building that is looking to be about 8,500 square feet in the first phase, probably about 15,000 square feet altogether. So this would be the project that would come forward with the site plan approval at a later date. We did have the Planning Commission review this at their May 22nd meeting. They did vote 5-0 to recommend approval. During the public hearing, we did not hear any discussion from the public, and there was limited discussion by the Planning Commission at the meeting itself. So the action before you tonight is the approval of the special use permit. I think we do have a representative from CrossFit HSC, Chad, in the audience, if you have any questions. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, John, for that presentation. Council, this item is before us. What's your wish? Councilmember Balsanic?
Thank you, Your Honor. Have we done this before with other projects? Is there a precedent?
Oh, as far as doing the use permit before? It happens from time to time. We have done projects where we phased the approvals in different segments, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Council, I'll seek a motion. Councilmember Fulch? makes a motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Balsanic. That motion is now before the body. Discussion to that motion. Okay. Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have under administration a request by Councilmember Fulch in regards to the Leduc agreement that currently exists between the City of Hastings and the Dakota County Historical Society. And Melanie, maybe Councilmember Fulch, let me address you first and bring up your concern or statement.
Sure. Thank you, Your Honor. As the council member of Ward 1, representing the area in which the Leduc resides, I have been working with the site manager there to have an event for National Night Out on August 1st. And so it's been a great learning opportunity about what is occurring there at the property. And in that discussion, because we're hoping, to hold an event there for the neighborhood. Hopefully, it'll be from like the mill all the way down to 10th Street and then, on the east side of 61. And so I'm excited about it. And the site manager was sharing with me that the Dakota County Historical Society Board has recently given her direction that the board does not want there to be an emphasis on special events occurring at the property, but rather more of a focus on tours. And so I had requested from Melanie, and thank you, she had provided to me the agreement so that I could take a look at it to see what had been agreed to. And it's actually, it's a good read. There are particular provisions in there in regards to budget reporting and programmatic reporting, and I'm just concerned. I'm just concerned that the City Council hasn't had an opportunity to review the new direction in which the board is providing to the site manager. And as I said, the agreement had actually began 5 years ago, and it had an automatic renewal period, which occurred on March 31st. So there's a provision in there, if no one's given notice, that it just automatically renews then for another 5-year period after March 31st. And I totally, I get it. I get contracts management. It's hard to stay on top of all those little provisions. And so I would like to take the opportunity to send the agreement and review of what's occurring at the Leduc for it to be sent to the administrative committee of the council for further analysis to ensure that the board is actually in alignment with the wishes of the city council, since that property is a Hastings property, City of Hastings property.
Okay, that's a motion. Okay, is there a second to that motion? Seconded by Councilmember Lund. Okay, that motion is now before the body discussion. Councilmember Lund.
Thank you. I appreciate that you bring it up. I think with the TAP assessment and a lot of the energy that's going into tourism right now, it makes sense to take a look at assets that we have here that are identified as important. I know that during the tourism meetings, the Leduc did come up a lot in discussion as an important asset. And if we're spending all this time and energy looking at how we can do tourism better and so forth, and what our vision is as a city, we should make sure that everything we have is in line with that as well. Even if it's not a very old agreement. I mean, it was renewed a handful of years ago, but things do change, and I think it makes sense to at least take it out and take a look at it in a committee. Not to mention all the money and energy that we've put into other assets in town. So let's make sure that they're all aligned. So I'm glad you brought it up.
Councilmember Brox.
I just have a question about the intent. Is the intent to review the agreement, or is the intent to determine if the agreement is being complied with? Or is the intent, because as I read the agreement, I guess what I see is that the city owns the property, but that the programming is the responsible of Dakota County Historical Society. So I don't know reading this, I'm not sure that we as the city of Hastings have the authority to tell Dakota County how they should program it. But so that's what I'm trying to clarify. Are we just looking to evaluate the agreement itself? Are we looking to evaluate the relationship between the city and the Dakota County Historical Society? What is it that we're aiming to do?
Councilmember Fulch, you'll yield?
Thank you, Councilmember Brox. Actually, there are provisions within the agreement, if you look at it very closely, that say they are to be actually providing regular reports, and it doesn't sound that has been occurring. And we are supposed to have the authority to review their budget and then their programming what it is that they're doing. And since the agreement actually does specify both tours and special events, I want to make sure that the original intent is still being complied with, because I'm not sure if it is, and I'm very concerned with the financial stability of the mansion and the property. To be very honest, if the focus the board is providing to the mansion is just tours to be provided to folks that are outside of, the city, I think that we're missing a huge opportunity to have our own residents invested within the property. They should be able to have events at that property. I'm excited to have our neighborhood there, hosting. I want people to feel connected to the property. I want them to come back. I want people to get married there. I want people to love the Leduc Mansion. And so I think that the board does not consist of residents of Hastings, as far as I'm aware. They do not regularly attend the events that are being held at the mansion, and so I just feel that they're out of sync. And we have been involved, several of us, if not all of us, in some respect, with tourism assessment that's occurring. And I wholeheartedly agree with Trevor that we should look at this opportunity. What do we want to do with the Leduc Mansion? Because we're not locked into that agreement. There are termination clause within it that we can provide notice and take a different direction. And I'm not there quite yet, but I do believe that there should be a realignment and an understanding as to how the elected officials of the city would like to guide the programming that's occurring at that property.
Councilmember Vaughn.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'm not on the committee. I would just ask that, I think it's a good thing to review an agreement. But I asked, because I asked that question during our retreat when we were there, I just want to respect the asset. How much can that building and that grounds actually hold to keep the historic value without it getting too beat up, too worn down? So as long as we make sure we're getting some good input on the historical side and how much can it take for traffic each year, I think that's important. So as long as the committee looks at that asset. Thanks.
Councilmember Brox.
Last thing I just want to say is that I just want to understand from when we talk about this what the outcome is that we expect. Because if the outcome is that we don't like the way Dakota County is running the Leduc and we should take it over, that's a different conversation than re-examining the agreement. So I just want to make sure that we're staying focused on building the relationship with Dakota County Historical Society, not trying to take it over and tell them what they should and shouldn't do. I would rather see us building a bridge rather than burning one. That's just my personal opinion on this.
Okay. I'll chime in a little bit. I agree 100%, Councilmember Brox, in your last statement. We have to keep a perspective here. The Leduc Mansion would not be operating today if we did not have the assistance of the Dakota County Historical Society. There's been a long tradition in the city of Hastings back when Carol Simmons was alive, when he first donated in 1958. And working with there was the Leduc Committee. Heidi, you probably remember back in the 80s with Lou Stoffel and Hazel Jacobson. But there's a long tradition working with the Dakota County Historical Society, and we would not be where we are today without it. And so I don't have a problem looking at an agreement and seeing, we can bring certain things up to date, but I certainly don't want to burn any bridges. Let's strengthen and support those bridges. The Dakota County Historical Society is an entity that cares about history. That's what they're in the business for. That's what that site is for. And I think we need to respect that. As far as members, I've met many of the board members through the years. I've been there at many functions at the House when the board presidents were there, from Victorian dinners to other events. So I do know they're there and they're engaged. And one of the exciting things I think that come along recently is that the Dakota County Board took on the Henry Hastings Sibley House. Bingo. That is a great thing. It sits in Mendota, and now we can promote the Leduc House, which is probably not as well known as the Henry Hastings Sibley House, but we have now another avenue of tourists who go to that spot who can learn about the Leduc House and the importance of the Leduc to our state history. So I welcome the opportunity to have the administrative committee look at this, but I hope we take a very constructive approach. Okay. Is there any further discussion? Okay. If not, all those in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. Next, we have number 9 off the consent agenda, first reading for Chapter 111 related to off-sale liquor sales on Sunday. Councilmember Fulch.
Thank you, Your Honor. This is the first time we've had a chance to review this particular issue, and we haven't had the opportunity to have conversation about it, well, at least for us new members. So I just wanted to clarify on what's occurring here, that we're bringing the city into compliance with the new legislative changes, the statutory changes that now allows Sunday sales. And so I think that that's great, and so I don't have any problem with that whatsoever. But what I was curious about was how it is that we came to have some of the details in it regarding under section, I'm not going to get this right, so it's statute 111.11, hours and days of sale, and then under D there, off-sale intoxicating liquor, and then there's the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And so what I was curious about were the holidays that were in there, because I understand, limiting the hours of operation, but I was a little thrown off about having Thanksgiving as being a day that it was illegal to have liquor stores open. And so I was just curious about if there was any background about how it is that those, because for those of you who don't have it right in front of you, there's an inclusion of Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, and then Christmas Eve.
I believe, Councilmember, that's state law.
That's state law, okay. Really?
Yes.
Everywhere? Okay.
That's state
That's
law.
what I was curious about. All right. That's it.
Okay. Did that answer your question there? We need to approve the first reading of that particular item, since it was on the consent. Councilmember Brox.
I just wanted to ask a question. I saw a note that some license holders had provided comment preferring hours for Sunday sales between 11 and 5. What's that all about? Melanie, can you tell us?
Your Honor and Council, thank you. At the time that we were sending out liquor license renewal paperwork, a handful of our applicants, they'll drop it off here at City Hall. And so everybody was tracking this legislation. We knew that this change was going to go into effect and that the city would have to take a proactive approach to amend the liquor license. So at that time, or liquor ordinance, excuse me, at that time, the couple license holders mentioned in passing to our deputy clerk who does the paperwork, we'd like to see it to be 11 to 5. Staff is recommending it for it to be 11 to 6, which is what it mimics the state statute, which is what all the rest of our liquor laws follow.
So they can still choose their own hours? It's not like we're
Absolutely.
restricting their hours, we just have an extra hour where they might not be open where sales could occur?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
That's all, thank you.
A law that the legislature passed this past session said they can be open from 11 to 6 on Sunday. Yep. Okay, so I need a motion to approve the first reading and order a public hearing. Councilmember Balsanic makes that motion, second by Councilmember Fulch. That motion is now before the body. Is there any further discussion to that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails. And then next, Councilmember Fulch, a resolution in regards to the Hastings Public Square.
Thank you, Your Honor. In reading this through, I am very glad to see that we're moving forward with this, and I believe in everything that that the staff are trying to achieve with restoring and keeping this beautiful city hall intact. What I was curious about, though, that I didn't see any actual financial figures within here that provided any detail as to specifically what is the need at this particular building in total, and then some of the breakdown. It had just mentioned in the financial impact that there's $1.4 million available in the overall program, and then that the city has approximately $500,000 in the budget stabilization fund set aside for repairs. And so, and I'm not expecting maybe for it to be provided right at this moment, but if for the newbies, if we could get a little bit more background information about really what does the work all entail for the preservation of the City Hall campus, if that's, because I think it had been mentioned at one point that it includes a little bit more than just this particular building. And so, again, it's more of a, if we can, those of us who are new, and I'm not sure if it's brought before the council in the past with any of the detail, but if we could get that financial information eventually, that would be great.
Melanie?
Your Honor and Council, this has been on staff's radar for a couple of years, and we've done a handful of studies, structural as well as operational studies, to make sure we are maintaining the building appropriately. It's been 25 years since we moved into the building, and as the memo articulates, there are just some things that need attention. Brick and limestone masonry, we've got roof repairs, the dome needs attention, site regrading, and then HVAC improvements. We've also done a space analysis for both City Hall and the police station, because the needs have changed over the years, and what would that look like? So all encompassing, and as well as some exterior site improvements. The roundabout in front is a little bit of a rough shape, but so all said and done, we have a cost estimate of about $7 million, but that is soup to nuts, everything. Not everything qualifies for this program, and so right now we're peeling back those layers and developing our budget recommendations, or our budget requests through the state program. And then there's also the Minnesota Historical Society grants and aid program that we'll be applying for as well. We needed to get this into the council before the application is due mid-month, so this was our chance to get it before you for approval. Happy to stand for any other questions.
And as an addendum to that, I have met with our legislative delegation, State Senator Dan Schoen and State Representative Tony Jurgens. They both have introduced legislation as far as the bonding request. And those committees, the House Capital Investment Committee and the Senate Capital Investment Committee, will be coming here this summer to look at this project. And that's part of the deal, to acquire, ultimately, hopefully, the funding that we need to put the building back into shape, much like our state capitol. So, okay. And so we need a motion to support this effort.
I make a motion.
Councilmember Fulch?
I'm sorry. I make a motion to approve the
Councilmember-
application. If we could get further detail, like if we could actually see the application, that would be nice, just so that we understand exactly what the need is here.
Okay.
Right.
Councilmember Fulch makes a motion to approve, seconded by Councilmember Brox. That motion is now before the body. All those in favor, any discussion? All those in favor of that motion, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. Motion prevails. Comments from the audience. Are there any comments from the audience? Any comments from the audience this evening? Okay. Oh, please, come, give us your name and address, and we're very glad to have you here. Thank you for being at the meeting.
Thank you, City Council members, Attorney Dan Flegel, and Mayor Hicks. My name is Shelley Rohr, R-O-H-R, and I reside at 2420 Southview Court in Hastings. And I'm sorry, I see on your agenda here tonight that you do not want to discuss subjects that are already on the agenda. As you know, I'm here to discuss the sex offender the sex offender ordinance. And I'm not sure where that is at. I know it was scheduled for a May meeting, which got pushed out to June. And I know there are a lot of people within the community that are wondering what is transpiring with this ordinance. I'm not sure if everybody on the council or in the audience understands. I was the original drafter of the ordinance that I submitted to the city council. I worked closely with the Apple Valley City Attorney with regard to drafting that and was able to gather some other ordinances on this as well. None of the ones that I gathered had ever been challenged by the Department of Corrections. I understand, and I don't know where it's at right now, that the ordinance that I had at least initially drafted has gone through some substantial changes at this point in time. And so I'd like to hear from, I think
Well, let me,
Lori is maybe on this.
yeah, or I can tell you where we are in the process.
Yes, that would be
Tonight,
very
you see
helpful.
on the agenda that tonight the council approved the first reading and order the public hearing. That will happen at the next meeting. That's when we'll have the ordinance, before us. It's also available online, the ordinance.
Right.
Under this heading, you click on it, and there it is. And the map. I think the mapping is on there as well.
Yeah, I looked at the map.
So
It's very
on
confusing.
the next meeting of the city council, because tonight we ordered we need 2 readings. Tonight was the first reading, order the public hearing. June 19th, Monday, June 19th will be the night where we give it a second reading, take public comment, and then council has discussion. And if it would pass, then it would have to be notified to the newspaper. Probably be right around July 1st the ordinance would be in effect.
And who does the mapping? Who did the mapping restrictions? Or the original ordinance had 1,500 feet, and then I think it got changed to 750, and I think there was a map that was produced that had it down to 750
Let me
feet.
refer that to the chair of the committee, Councilmember Brox.
Thank you.
Sure, we had, the chief organized the Dakota County GIS to do the mapping at various distances from the locations that we were discussing, parks, schools, and so we had various maps at the last meeting where we looked at distances and discussed those. We do have a memo of that discussion that we can share with you if you'd like to see it.
That would be great.
And so when, at the end of the hearing, we, as a committee, recommended the lowest amount of distance from the parks, which was 750, because a lot of the other distances that were larger covered larger portions of the city, and we can't cover the whole city with areas that people can't live. We had to pick a distance that made sense, that still allowed some open space for people to live if they chose to move to Hastings. So 750 is what the committee decided that they were comfortable with, and that's what we have recommended for approval to the full city council.
And can additional comments in that then be directed to you, Lori, if we
Sure.
have some concerns? All right.
You can certainly call me, email me, whatever you would like to do.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your testimony. Appreciate it. Is there anyone else who would like to speak before the city council this evening? Anyone else? Okay, seeing none. Council announcements. Councilmember Fulch?
Thank you, Your Honor. I just wanted to share that I had gone out to the comprehensive plan, the 2040 comprehensive plan kickoff meeting that was last week. And I wanted just to share with you, as council members, to let you know at the next meeting, I think it might be interesting, especially for those of us who are new, to attend, because the topic is going to specifically be reviewing the previous comprehensive plan that was adopted 10 years ago. And we get so much literature, and it's hard to keep up on all of that. And so I just thought it would be a very good history lesson for any council members that may not be completely familiar with the comprehensive plan, as I am not. To get that baseline, we received an email today for there to be a joint planning and a council meeting later in July. So the last I heard, it was to be determined when that meeting was going to be, sometime within June and July. And then thereafter, the meetings will take place on the first Thursday of each month, starting in August, and over a duration of about 12 months. And so it was just really exciting to see the number of folks that showed up to be a part of the group. And I think I could tell when I left that everybody was really, enthusiastic and looking forward to being a part of the planning process. So it was a really good experience.
Okay.
Yep, that was it.
Melanie?
Your Honor, Council, thank you, Councilmember Fulch. Just a point of clarification, the steering committee, they will be meeting again. I think the next meeting is going to be that July 6th date. We're waiting for the calendar to come out. And the joint meeting with the council and planning commission, we're looking at planning commission.
Yeah, planning, city council,
So
and
that
steering
joint-
committee.
yeah,
That'll be a
yeah.
joint meeting. They were looking at July 31st, but that hasn't been set yet.
Yeah, we're looking into early August for that
We'll be
meeting. so
Everybody getting together to meet.
We expect emails to be finalizing those dates here real shortly.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Lund.
Thanks. I'd like to remind everybody to come down to the Vets Memorial Levy down at the Pavilion. We've got June 6th from 5 to 8. There'll be bouncy houses, Mayor.
How about you? You and me, we'll
I'm in.
we'll go in there together?
All right.
We'll kick all the kids out, we'll take it over. That'll be a good one.
Yeah, live music and other things. So it was fun last year, and hopefully I'll see everybody down there this year as well.
Thank you. Appreciate that announcement. Councilmember Balsanic?
Well, now, speaking of all that fun, the 13th of June, I can hardly wait. It's the Utilities Committee of the Council is meeting at 7:45 a.m. Not sure if we're going to have any bouncy houses or anything, but we are going to start a review of the agreement with the,
Waste hauler?
I hate to call it trash.
Waste hauler?
It's
Utility
the-
hauler.
Nope, nope.
Nope.
It's Comcast. It's our cable franchise,
Okay.
Your Honor and
Ah,
Council.
there we go. Yes.
Garbage
Okay.
will be later.
Yeah. Well, yeah, depending on what channel, it could be kind of trashy. The other thing is I just want to, as we're getting into the warm months now, finally, to encourage citizens of Hastings to look into protecting their ash trees. There's an injection process and a ground treatment process that are very successful. They are not environmentally a problem because it is an injection process, not a spray. And the cost of doing something like that is much, much less than the removal of a dead tree. So we do have a plan in place for the city. We did talk about it, I believe, at the last council meeting. You can call the city if you have any questions. Look on our website. It does explain everything. But let's see what we can do to save our ash trees. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing none, I have a few. As Trevor said, summer kickoff celebration tomorrow down at the Pavilion, 5 to 8. And you can watch he and I in the bouncy. We'll have a good time. All right. Monday, June 12th, the Planning Commission will be meeting at 7 p.m. here at Hastings City Hall. Wednesday, June 14th through the 16th, the City Council will be attending the League of Minnesota Cities Annual Conference in Rochester. On Thursday, June 15th, the Public Safety Advisory Commission will be meeting at the fire station at 7 p.m. On Monday, June 19th, is the next City Council meeting. That will be at 7 p.m. And just a reminder that due to the 4th of July holiday, the 4th of July this year is on a Tuesday. And so the City Council normally meets on the first and third Monday of the month. Because of that holiday being on a Tuesday, the City Council is going to push that back and meet on the second and fourth Mondays of that month, and while the Planning Commission will be meeting on the alternative Mondays. So when we get there on the 4th of July week, that Monday, July 3rd, City Council will not be meeting. We'll be meeting a week later on the 10th, and then on the 24th. Okay? So we'll get that straightened out. All right, Council, we have no other business before us. A motion to adjourn is in order. Councilmember Brox makes that motion to adjourn, seconded by Councilmember Fulch. That's a non-debatable motion. All those in favor of that motion say aye. Aye. Those opposed, nay. The motion prevails, and we are adjourned. Thank you.